button just went on again.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Literary Nights with Unsolicited Press. We have a special edition this evening with two writers, Terry Tierney, whose book actually came out yesterday, and it's called Why Trees Stay Alive, and Ann Lee Parrish, who is the author of 15 books, who have books coming out in 2026 and ongoing. She's had a very long career with Unsolicited Press. So she's going to be reading from her work that is forthcoming in 2026, and Terry's going to be reading from his brand new baby, Why Trees Stay Outside. So we're going to start with Ann Lee Parrish, and then we're going to go to Terry, and then I hope you enjoy the readings tonight. Ann, are you ready?
I am. Thank you so much. I'm glad to be here again. And you are correct. I will be reading tonight from some forthcoming titles. Now, depending on how long I read and people get tired of it, my plan was to read two very short stories that are from a collection that will be published in 2026 called The One That Got Away. And that is actually the title of one of the two short stories. I have the title story of the book, but I also have some new poetry because I have a poetry title coming out in 2026 too. So poetry and prose. I'm starting to go a little batty with this schedule, but anyway, the first thing I'm going to read for everybody is a short story from this pending collection called Caleb's Girl. Caleb says she's so amazing, more like a goddess than a girl. He hasn't been seeing her long, and none of us have met her yet, so we accuse him of making her up. He says she's as real as anyone, only she smells like French perfume, sings like Adele, has the brains of Einstein, and the body of a centerfold. Someone says she can probably fly. Oh, she can, she really can, Caleb says. We play another hand. The guy to my left wins with a royal flush. He shuffles the cards and wants to know when this girl's going to show. Any minute now, Caleb says. She's off work at 10. Minutes come and minutes go, and we all are sick of cards. We put on a movie, an old one from the 50s with a fake dinosaur that breathes fire and burns down Tokyo. The guy who won the pot takes off, so does my roommate who has to be up at 6. That leaves me and Caleb staring at this stupid movie, trying to stay awake, waiting for this girl. Finally, the back door opens and Caleb's on his feet, heading into the kitchen at warp speed. There are voices and laughter, so I go too. This girl is the ugliest thing I've ever seen. Tall, wide, pale, milky skin, but not in a sexy way, in a gross, sour kind of way, and flaming red hair that on another girl would be cute, but on this girl makes her look like a clown, a female bozo, a bozette. Dude, this is Emmeline, Caleb says. I'm guessing that's not your real name, she says. Kevin, I say. Caleb dances around, asking if Emmeline had a good day at work. Super, she says, just super. She's a dog groomer, Caleb tells me. You work late hours, I say. I have some special clients, he says. I bought that wine you like, Caleb says. He's got a full glass in his hand. I don't remember seeing him pour it. I'm too busy looking at Emmeline, whose fiery hair has taken on a tamer, softer tone. Her skin is warmer, almost bronze, and I figure the light in Caleb's kitchen is doing strange things. The light doesn't explain why she's shorter than before, and her frame is petite now. I recall my acid-tripping days and suspect a random flashback is at work. Isn't it amazing the way she shrinks? Caleb asks. Don't listen to him, Emmeline says, and sips her wine. You do look smaller, I say. Eye of the beholder, she says. Soon Caleb's got her in the palm of his hand. She's so tiny. What the hell is in that wine? I asked and realized I haven't had any. Chill, dude. It's just Emmeline doing her thing. Emmeline talks about the dogs she brushes and scrubs, their owners, the place she lives overlooking an alley, for a fortune teller once told her she would never be lonely. Wait, I say. A fortune teller in an alley? Yeah, she was dumpster diving. I bought her a coffee and she told me my fortune. Did she say anything about making people hallucinate? No one talks, and suddenly the kitchen's so hot, I'm soaked in sweat. What do you mean? Caleb asks. Shape-shifting. You know, being one thing and then being something else, I say. Dude, the only thing shape-shifting is your perception, Emmeline says. You're the size of a thimble, I say. Like I said before, eye of the beholder. The room cools off beautifully. The way this girl controls temperature could save mankind from global warming. Emmeline lifts out of Caleb's palm like a butterfly leaving a flower and lands on my shoulder. A warm, tingly sensation soon follows, and in no time I'm mellow, happy as a clam. How do you do that? I asked. I just have a lot to go around. A lot of what? Everything good. That's big stuff for such a small person. Where did you two meet? I asked. At the gym, Caleb says. Emmeline's a personal trainer. I thought you were a dog groomer, I said. I was a personal trailer before the pandemic. The pleasant glow remains after Emmeline gets off my shoulder and stands next to Caleb. She's normal sized, not fat, not thin. Her hair's red and her skin is pale, but now they're easy to look at. You changed again, I say. The only thing that's changed is what you think I am. What's she talking about? I asked Caleb. When she first came in, you thought she was ugly, he says. I did not. Yes, you did. That's okay. I thought so too when I first met her, Caleb says. Rude, Emmeline says, but she's not mad. You were ugly and now you're not, I say. In vino veritas, she says, and I remind her that I've had no arm. Emmeline says she has to use the bathroom, that she hopes Caleb has cleaned it since the last time she was over. Oops, he says. Men, she says. Caleb and I wait for her in the other room where the movie is still playing. I tell him I don't get her at all. Emmeline, I mean. She's on a campaign to change people's minds, he says. About what? Appearances. Emmeline comes back. She put on weight in the bathroom. You can only tell if you look closely. She smells sweet, flowery. Maybe she's got perfume stashed somewhere. You got any sisters? I ask her. Anyone who identifies as female. Big family. Worldwide. We watch the movie. Godzilla goes from scaly to smooth, and the fire from his mouth is a rainbow. Did you do that? I ask Emmeline. Caleb shushes me. He says we're getting to the best part, where Godzilla saves the world. That's not what happens, I say. But as I go on watching, it is. And so I think I don't know what was in my head when I was. No. Okay, so that was story number one. If you would like, I will read you the second story. It's also very short. And this is the title story to the collection called The One That Got Away. Meeting Moira, Moira, it's hard to pronounce. Meeting Moira for coffee is like getting my teeth cleaned. I know it's going to hurt. I think of reasons not to go, then go anyway. For the dentist, there's an appointment and it looms on my calendar. Moira doesn't make appointments. She texts and demands my presence. She tends to need me more in bad weather, so predictably it's pouring. The place she wants to meet has an overhang and electric heaters. It's all very COVID friendly, she explains. We don't have to sit inside and risk getting breathed on by some infected idiot. I'm not sure how being infected qualifies someone as being an idiot, but it's one of Moira's favorite words. She used to call me one frequently. I arrive late, knowing she'll be later still. Ever the gentleman, I order her an espresso so she won't have to stand in line. It'll cool a bit before she swoops in, but she'll drink it anyway. Waste not, want not. Mine's a decaf latte with non-fat milk. My doctor says I consume too much caffeine and too many calories. Even someone my age can change his ways. I'm not going to tell you what that age is, but let's just say I grew up watching Adam West prance around in his cape and visor. The heater above my head is trained on my bald spot. My fingers are freezing, so I hold my cup and blow away the steam. Moira hustles across the street. She's got on a new red coat, wool from the look of it, and a dashing black beret. The outfit makes her seem young. When she gets closer, see she's not young, which I know, of course, but always seem to forget everything she's ever been through lies on that face and in her eyes, even when they're red-rimmed, as they are now from the cold, or some inner woe, their blue is fierce, timeless. She throws down an academic journal on the table, making the coffee slosh. The espresso is close to her elbow, so I move it so she won't knock it over. Her body is full of angry energy I should have known. Moira calls when she wants to vent, a habit that started a few years after we divorced. I pick up the journal and see there's a review of her most recent collection of poetry. From her sour expression, it must be that. I flip to the page in question, scan the article, and close the journal. It says your work is inspirational, I say. What's not to like? Hallmark cards are inspirational. So are those sleazy self-help pundits cheering you on, lining their wallets with your money. I sip my coffee. It's delicious, even though it's low octane. Moira takes off her hat, runs her fingers through her short, curly gray hair. I remember when it was brown with gorgeous red highlights. We met in our 20s and were married for almost 20 years. We have no children together, though my wife has two from a previous marriage. Life with Moira was like walking into a nuclear reactor. She burned me out. I think I'm still exhausted, yet here I sit in the presence of my first love, waiting, always waiting for the narrative to bend toward the light. I'm poignant, in touch with how things are, she says. Moira writes about depressed women, which is basically all women, crooked politics, ditto, and how nature is the only thing we can look to for any meaningful guidance. If that last isn't inspirational, I don't know what is. What she wants is to educate and enlighten, not lift the heart. That's for saps. She thinks of herself as a meanie, which is only partly true. She's also a passionate woman, in love with life. When I'm gone, the critics will redefine me. Don't you see? It'll be their voice the readers hear, not mine, she says. They can't get onto the pages of your books. You're the only one there. Moira dismissively waves her hand. How often has she done that over the years? The rain falls at a slant, and my feet are getting damp now. Moira sighs and looks at me as if she hasn't fully registered my presence. What's new with you? How's the restaurant? Did the lockdown put you out of business? She asks. We're doing a lot of takeout. For fun. I'm the head chef of an elegant French place on the waterfront that was packed every night before the pandemic dropped. The restaurant is about to fail. My wife is flipping out about it almost daily. Her two college-age monsters are back home, lying around, playing video games and emptying the larder. Meeting Moira in the rain is a piece of cake compared to that. She tells me again that our splitting up was a mistake and she's sorry. I never tire of her saying so. It's just way past its sell-by date. Why did we anyway? She asks. That's new, and I have to choose my words carefully. I bored you. She nods solemnly. Regret's a funny thing, she says. I wait for a follow-up, and when there is none, I ask if there's anything else she needs to get off her chest. She says no, she's taken up enough of my time. You just got here, I say. I'm freezing. She finishes her coffee, then looks thoughtfully at the journal on the table. How will I be remembered, Phil? She asks. As a trailblazer, no doubt. She smiles, that smile I still dream about. Then she takes the journal, rises, and scurries off into the downpour. Also, as the one who got away, I say. I get up, take our cups inside, and walk through the rain alone. So that's two. Would you like me to continue, or should we turn it over to Terry? Can you guys hear me? Okay, I'm waiting for Rosalie to tell me if we're gonna have you read now. Are you ready to read?
Oh, sure.
Yeah, because it's 5:48. Yeah, I'm not
Rosalia, you're muted.
Rosalie, you're muted. There
Yes,
she
I'm
is.
sorry. I said, did we lose you? It was
No,
a
no,
little.
I was just asking, should we turn the reading now over to Terry, or did you want me to jump into my poetry? Because I think Terry, I'm fine. You guys decide.
I think we can. Maybe we can go back and forth. So Terry, let's hear some of your work and from your book, Why Trees Stay Outside.
Okay. Yeah, because I would like to hear some of Anne's poetry too. So this is Why Trees Stay Outside.
So after you read, maybe we could go back to Anne.
Okay, sounds good. It was just published yesterday by Unsolicited Press. I love the cover, and I thought I'd take the opportunity tonight to read some poems I don't normally read, which is really fun for me because I love all the poems in this book, of course, and so I like the opportunity to read a couple of that I haven't read frequently. But I do want to start with the title poem, just to kind of introduce the book. So this poem was written. It was inspired by my son when he was, excuse me, when he's really small, and he was sitting in his car seat behind me on our way to preschool. Why trees stay outside? Why do trees stay outside? My son asks in the rearview mirror, his car seat centered behind me. He worries about the soaking rain, the trees getting wet. I could tell him the old fable, the night the redwoods came to dinner and grew too tall to leave. Or I could tell him the truth, how the trees are inside now. We live in their house, their roots clasped in rings around us, like praying hands. They watch, wondering why we neglect the pain of mowed grass, the desperation of deer and fawn sprinting for shelter. The cold stars peering through boughs of live oak, the promise of blooming moss. I might echo his teachers, say we are one with nature. The trees and rocks love us. They want to be left outside, the easy answer he expects. We climb a ridge as the rain clears, sifting soot from the air. Across the bay, the Farallon Islands punch through the fog like knuckles. This next poem is about cats, somewhat, and my sister had a line of polydactyl cats, and those are cats with more than 5 fingers or more than 5 claws. And then I read that Hemingway had polydactyl cats down in Key West, so I put 2 and 2 together. It starts with Hemingway. Hunched over black typewriter, musing light, sun-washed curtains, cigarette targeting keys, another burning in glass ashtray. Sleeveless, fly-sticking sweat, he slams the carriage return, rifle bolt spitting empty shells, a platen injecting a new line, polydactyl cat on the windowsill. The same cat perches in my chair, matted fur from trekking north, Key West to Miami by boat, padding through snaky swamps, canvas vest stuffed with flasks, sultry whiskey and cognac promise, a carton of Camels in his backpack. Typing fast with 6 toes, no thumb for spacebar, the endless paragraph unrolling toward asphalt horizon. Word to word, strangers no more. Kerouac asleep in the back. My turn to drive. This next poem features my mother, although I did a lot of extrapolation. This is called Ghost Machine. My mother says the camera steals souls. Flashbulb explodes and collapses, sucking spirits through shutters and lens. Ghostly fog on silver nitrate. Edison's last invention, a way to reverse the process, a ghost machine to call the dead, fails because they already answered, hanging on damp Smithsonian walls. You see them in prints from Antietam, stoic generals and twisted dead, souls raining down on fences and pasture, wagon wheels stuck in spirit mud. Matthew Brady's pine boxes stuffed with ghosted plates. Redwood, Red Cloud, his proud nose, the prairie woman's scarred face, she says she remembers. The album of souls on her coffee table, family photos I scanned to the cloud, even those from her funeral, that day I left my umbrella home and learned that some escape. Her spirit seeping through my coat, making sure I'll never forget. This is another poem that features my mother, and you hear about it in the poem. But my mother and my father had to elope. In those days, it was because he was a Catholic and she was a German Lutheran, and so their families didn't approve of their marriage. So since he was recently came home from the war, the only housing they could find was in an old army base. In these Quonset huts. So this is called, and this is also based on my very first memory. One of my very first memories. I remember sitting on a step and watching my dad try to peel the paint off the handle of a kitchen utensil. Peeling the handle. My father's jackknife shaved smears of sunlight from a cloudless sky. As he chips scabs of red enamel from the wooden handle, white primer underneath, fresh skin. My small hands ape his fingers. He sits below me on the steps to our door, slathered with battleship gray, my mother in the kitchen, boiling potatoes. In a later year, they show me a dull gray photograph, thick boards of the stoop firmly nailed, the Quonset hut with lace curtains, door set in its corrugated curve, bare yard, pale 1950 Chevrolet. When I recall that morning on the steps, my mother laughs. Another infant invention. But I know she worried, the potatoes boiling over those nights he came home late. Stories she thought I would not remember. How she waited for 3 years, how they eloped after the war, hope chest stuffed with lace and sterile gauze, the veteran housing on an old base, 10 miles of gravel to his new job, farther in the drifting snow. I never learned why she asked him to whittle the handle, though the masher looked so odd with patches of red and white. Was it the grip or the peeling paint, gritty flakes when she chewed, or was it the pine wood steps, the temporary apartment away from home, or the one thing she could control? This poem is called I Can't Get My Hands Clean. She's sure to notice after all this time. She knows every mote of dust, syllables left by our conversations, words I allowed to escape. If only flesh could heal that chasm and fill the shallow crosses of fingerprints, greasy scratches, and gray pink shadows, embedded grit that engines shed like spores, as if they will spout new cams and pistons. She used to worry about my hands, not because of their coarse edges, snagging the cotton of her blouse, but the way she could read a man's grip, the garages where he worked. The nights she peeled back my skin and found another layer of stained callus, no matter how deep I scrubbed. So that poem was not about my mother. This last poem is called Again, the Supermoon. And I wanted to read this poem because I just had a review that somebody published in a literary magazine, and they mentioned this poem as one of their favorites. And so, that was kind of fun. So I thought I'd read it. Again, the supermoon. Nights when the moon is close, tides of blood rush through my body, draw me toward the shore of clouds as you try to pull me back. I hear the Bowie in my ears, the bells that think they know me, have seen me before, the same cliff, same alarm. I should know its direction, but I am lost, craving the first snow, the humidity colder than frost, the silent time alone. Leave the door open for me. Thank you.
It's great. Yeah, those are great.
Such wonderful,
Thanks.
wonderful poems. I really enjoyed all of them.
Thank you.
So, Anne, do you want to read some of your poems?
Yeah, I will. So these are in no particular order. I'm just going to sort of start and, throw out a couple. This also is a forthcoming title in 2026 poetry. The title of the book is The Banished and the Dead. So I'm just going to start. This first poem is called The Suburbanites Visit a Nightclub. The girl dances in the center of the room, and in the corner you freeze. She's just dancing, I say. But why must she do it here, where I can see? Ignore her, I say. Can I ignore a fire? The girl dances on, drunk, ecstatic, her joy running its course like a fever. Drinks are served, we don't touch them. The girl twirls her last twirl, and a laughing man leads her back to their own corner. I'm fire, I tell you, but you're on your phone now, tapping away. You don't know you're about to burn. Strife. Paint by number sky hangs over the city at night, represents all places, everywhere, summarized. Light takes so long to reach us, when we see it, it's all gone. Does starlight dim as it burns across space? What I say today stings less over time. How young we were caused our strife, and all the bad stuff later. I'm sorry if I pour life down the drain. What's left in the trap? You. History. Witty zingers. Arguments won. Shame accepted. A mountain on which to stand and name the rocks below. We forget what they're called. I'm as guilty as you, my transgression's just as cruel. The mountain wears away to a grassy plain where we lie, ready to help each other back up. Perhaps we map disaster, perilous seaways, treacherous mountain passes, forbidding terrains of all kind. Do we hold it in common? Or is there one map for you and another for me? We find ourselves on a tiny plot of land in a strangely calm sea. How do we escape? The map is blank, faded and burned by the sun. We'll draw a new one, he said, with clear paths and gentle views. No, I say, that's a silly fantasy. You say perhaps, but some call it faith. I will give you this one. You probably call it a day, but let's see. Floating bridge. On one side of the bridge, the lake roils. On the other side, all is calm. A clear case of opposites, or the power of one thing to break the rolling sweep of another. I stand between you and disaster, absorb the blows, keep out the rain. Not as elegant as that bridge, not built by the hand of man, even yours. Yet I'm a tough old broad. Someone with a weakness for film noir once said, as a roof shelters, so does the heart. The trick is to seek it and protect it if you can. Do I keep going? Or should I stop?
Sure, we have a little bit of time, and then after
We have
that,
a
we'll
little
start
bit
our
of time.
discussion.
All right, well, bear with me. Poppy. A single crimson poppy flutters in weedy grass, catches the light like blood. Wasn't that grand, we asked, just there for us to find? You didn't mean to say like blood, did you? The damaged ceiling comes down to reveal a beam singed by fire, but you can't see hides in silence with a ragged clawed animal that lives on flesh and sets the world alight. On its day off, it might give the wind a seed to play with and drop at will. Hence, our shimmering poppy. On another day, we'll say it glows like that ruby stone in the ring I gave you back, saying I can't. Not now, maybe not ever. Daring and determined. Love or anger? Which keeps those two soaring birds together as warm air lifts them from sun-soaked earth? This is the big empty of central Washington, where one forest is behind and the next hours away. Anger and love reside in every tumbleweed and stalk of grass, though not in equal measure. Which prevails and why? Ask the birds as they dart, swoop, and keep a daring, determined focus, one upon the other. And this will be the last one I'll read, unless you beg me for more. Another day. Light rises around the sheltering house, weaves reality from dreams, draws breath from bruised lips, nudges us into the familiar. Another day. Anything is possible, if not probable. Water boils, coffee brews, bread browns, butter goes bad, milk sours, papers late again. Our resolve to continue mimics the worm's drive to wriggle through the wet earth until a beak snatches it away. No beak for us. We've already been taken, already surrendered. That's all I got.
Thank you both. Terry, I would like for you to hold your book up again so that people could see the cover of your newly birthed book.
Mm-hmm. There it is.
It's beautiful.
I could read a couple
bravo.
more poems also if you'd like me to.
That would be great.
Okay.
That would be wonderful.
Because as you were reading, Anne, there was a couple that I thought of that are kind of conversational a little bit. I thought that might be fun. I have to find them though.
What I'm struck by both of your work, both the prose and the poetry, is the inspiration of it. It's all very inspirational.
Yeah. So it's taking a little bit longer than I was hoping. I didn't. My table of contents is not in alphabetical
Take your time.
order.
Yeah.
Okay, well, here's more of a love poem. This is called Rumor of Love. Tonight, we hide behind pseudonyms, trying to guess our subtext, like literature freshmen. Should I prune my hair? Will it grow more roots? That Christmas, we found a bird's nest in the tree, an omen for our lives in this former pasture. How I wrote the philosophy essay for our son, his only C. The handful of nails I left on the deck, my lost keys, the rusty bucket of rainwater bursting with mosquito larvae, the hint of malice in my runny nose, how you always carry tissue, even when I'm swinging upside down. Never forget the secret cadence of my name. Those first moments of our breathless romance swept into the slipstream of a 16-wheeler, blowing out these walls so we could dance. Did I ever tell you I lost my keys on purpose? That age does not exist? That our discarded gestures live on like a rumor no one else will ever share?
Beautiful.
This poem is called Weatherman. He knows it will rain when his knees swell. The dark days of no sun, his darker mood. He measures the length of his limping strides, projects their end. But today, a short walk like slathering grease on rusted rack and pinion. He wonders if storms ever die or circle the earth forever, drain weaker as they go, gather in tropical retreats, sip umbrella drinks, collect crystals of shaved ice until they blossom refreshed, bulging with carefree humidity. He remembers that warm day his sun-dried bones flexed, the swelling evaporated in steamy clouds. Skin baked and stretched like tanning leather. Free of pain, a comfort, too much like death.
Wow, powerful.
Yes, very.
This poem's a little bit lighter. And I can end on this. It's called When God Collects the Rent. Limousine gleams under street lamp. Angels leaning on fenders, airbrush perfect, singing in harmony with their iPhones. How old he looks, too old for them, but I know better. I hide behind my curtain, watch his approach up cracked slate, his weightless footsteps. He knows where I stand, my thinning hair, swollen joints, depleted cash. He might have arrived by meteor, a charging bull, golden warrior, hunter who shoots first, but he instills more fear like this, cerebral and quiet. When he rattles my door, my breath dissolves in whispers, words limping over the threshold, practiced and hollow, pleading, give me a few more days. Thank you.
Thank you both for reading such powerful and poignant work tonight. So Terry, I think you write prose too, right? Essays, or I vaguely remember you writing. Yes. So both of you write prose and poetry. Can you talk a little bit about the different approaches that are required, or the different, you know, the way you approach poetry versus prose? Can both of you sort of give your ideas about that? Do you want to start with Terry?
Why don't you go first, Dan?
I don't have anything brilliant to say, but it's an excellent question, and I find myself sort of reflecting on that often. For me, most often, a poem is going to start with an image of something very specific. that I'm going to kind of build an experience around, an impression around. The prose also has sort of something at the center that is built around, but it's much more complicated. When I turn my thoughts to novels, oh my goodness, they are so hard for me to write. There's so much going on. That is an administrative exercise to me, much more than poetry is. Poetry is all about the rhythm of those lines and the word choice, the stuff that I absolutely love. Novels, I love too, but it's like a task list that's much more, to me, demanding. So it's like I'm in a little bit more of a creative space when I'm writing poetry than I am with prose. I just love them both. I love writing poetry, but I love short stories and novels. So I'm glad I don't have to choose.
Well, it's really
I
interesting
think
that
Anne
you.
froze a little bit.
I think it's interesting that you describe novel writing as kind of an administrative exercise, and it is that in a way, because I'm sure you work like um, you're much more accomplished than I am, but I know that I have to write and rewrite and rewrite and rewrite, many
Constant,
times, and I'm sure you go through some of that too,
constant.
and just to kind of get it right and get the characters right, get the flow right. I think the difference for me is similar to what you said in a way, in that I I tend to drop everything when I feel a poem coming on, meaning if I get an idea or an image or something, I will kind of go with it. And typically, poems build in my notebook by image to image and idea to idea. And whereas with prose, even though it has a lot of the same elements, prose certainly has beginning, middle, and end, of course, and it has characters, but it also has metaphor and symbols, and I find that with prose, I tend to outline a little bit, although I always go outside my outline, but it's more of a kind of a planned pathway in some ways, at least the way it starts, and then whereas when I start writing in my notebook, I'm never sure if it's going to end up being a poem or a story, and I just kind of go with it. And I think that's the fun of you're writing a rough draft is the funnest thing I think that we do, or at least that I do, and so I really enjoy those moments when I have an idea and I can try to just brainstorm it.
So what do you each do when you're writing either prose or poetry, when you get to that point of, okay, what happens next? So Terry, you just said you brainstorm it, but do you ever get like stuck, or do you have to walk away from your notebook or your computer to figure out what happens next? Like, how do you, like, that's the thing. I think there's even a whole book that's called What If, to help writers get past that, what happens next.
Well, with regards to poems, a lot of times I am able to at least come up with a very rough draft of a poem in one sitting, if I have enough time. But other times I will go back to it and feel like I just don't have enough there. That it's just too one side, too one dimensional or something. And so, a lot of those things just end up as kind of scraps. And sometimes I will go on kind of a scavenging expedition in my notebook, and I'll take several of these little scraps and I'll put them together, and see if I can rub them together and get a spark. Um, but with prose, it's different for me because I very seldom am able to, unless it's like a flash fiction piece, I'm very seldom able to write an entire rough draft in one day. So that's where you kind of have to be thinking about well, okay, I got this today, what am I going to do tomorrow? Do I have a little bit of an outline? Um, and of course, a lot of times for me, it comes down to what the characters want to do, and what they're ready, what they're ready for. And a lot of times the characters kind of let me know what's coming next. I know that sounds
No,
kind of
totally
weird, but
understand that.
that's
When
And how
I get
about you?
stuck, yeah, when I get stuck, and I do, I won't call it writer's block. I run out of steam with a particular project. I tend to have like 3 or 4 different major projects that I'm working on at the same time. So I can put one down, work on something else, run out of steam with that one, come back. And I can kind of do this round robin thing. And that keeps me fresh. But there are definitely times when I just don't feel very inspired. So what I do is I go back and I read what I have so far. Just jump back onto it and start reading it, because then the editing hat is there, pencil in my hand, then I'm making changes, and then I'm thinking, okay, the whole directional thing needs to shift and it needs to go this way. So it's just, I have to go back and look again, push forward, or put it to one side and work on something else for a while, just to keep fresh. But I've got, as I say, I've got several things. So I can always, sometimes I just find that I'm not doing a whole lot, and I say, come on, you got a lot that you can do. So quit playing solitaire and get to work. So,
I'm glad you mentioned that, Anne, because I also I have like 2 novels that I'm working on right now, different stages, plus I'm always writing poems, and then I have a few short stories lined up that I should be editing. So there's always something that you can jump over to. And I think having multiple projects is really a good way to do it. A lot of my friends ask me how I can do that. And I can't imagine doing it any other way. I can't imagine being, tunnel
okay,
visioned on one project for a couple of years. I just
yeah.
couldn't do that.
I know writers who write one thing, then they
Yeah.
write the next thing, I couldn't do that.
Yeah. I admire their focus, but but I don't have that kind of focus.
So, Anne, I noticed that in your short stories, both of them were from the male point of view. The
That's very rare for
character,
me.
the narrator, persona. Yeah. So I was gonna say, it, and I'll ask Terry the same question. Um, when it comes to writing from a different gender or a different, like, do you approach it differently, or does the voice come to you? Um, how do you know that the persona narrator is male or female?
Inspiration. I don't know, that initial idea,
Mm-hmm.
it's there.
Yeah, I think it's yeah, I was impressed, Anne, with how well you did the male narrator, and I do have most in my first 2 novels, the narrator in both of those novels was male. I have worked on um, one of the novels I'm working on now has basically 3 narrators, and 2 of them are female. So I have tried to I am trying to branch out a bit, but with I think it's a challenge for me, because there's I certainly admit that there's some things in the female experience that I don't really know. Of course, I know a lot of women and so forth that can help me with that. But when it gets down to things like um, thought and memory, and you're trying to understand your relationships and things like that, I think there's a lot of commonality between the male and female point of view that
Totally.
that is definitely fair ground. And but it is it is tricky these days. I think I think you have to be careful not to get too deep into something and have somebody point you out as an imposter.
Oh,
But
that
um, but if you
almost,
do it, but I think, yeah, I was just going to say though that authors have been doing that forever.
Yeah.
I think one of my favorite authors is uh, William Makepeace Thackeray, a Victorian novelist, and his best character
Mm.
is Becky Sharp, who's a woman and who's the the protagonist in Vanity Fair, and he does a marvelous job, and so anyway, it's um, I'm challenging myself, and I think it's a good thing to do.
Exactly. I agree. I agree wholeheartedly. So, Anne, do you want to follow up with that, or uh,
I found in my writing life that so many of my characters were female. And I said, there is 50% of the population you're not writing about or writing from. And I've been married 47 years, so I do live with the same man. So that's, I think I know pretty well how he thinks. So I kind of, pull his psychology out and his reactions. And I find that, men and women are not that different. We're all pretty much the same. We all have the same, we express differently because we have been raised, especially older people, have been raised with certain behavioral expectations on our responses, but the urges and the fears and the trauma, that's universal. That's universal. And just to touch very briefly on what you said, Terry, and this whole idea that you can't write about somebody else because you're appropriating it, don't get me started. I have no patience for it. William Faulkner wrote about African Americans brilliantly, brilliantly. And I think people need to get over it. If somebody is writing about a Black person and they are doing it in a stereotyped way, they're a bad writer. I'm sorry, stereotypes are bad writing. If you're doing it in an insulting way, get rid of it because you don't get to insult people. That's also bad writing. So I don't think for the good writers, you need to think about appropriation and not appropriation. I think if you're a good writer, people are going to be written fairly, honestly, with depth and nuance and respect. Anyway, that's my soapbox. Because I have ideas about this.
well, Zora
No,
Zora Neale Hurston wrote a book about a white family. I think it's called something on the Swanee. I don't remember the whole title, but nobody would publish that book because they felt that she had no right to write about a white family. I actually read that book, and it's a wonderful, wonderful book. Sarah from the Swanee, I think it's called. It's hard to find, but if you could find that book, definitely do. It's a wonderful, wonderful book. Terry, you were about to say something.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to agree with Anne. I think it's a good point. And for me, this new novel I'm working on, it's about a relationship between two people, and I thought it'd be so much more interesting if we could see both points of view, and and it is kind of a new it's kind of a new thing for me in some ways. Although I've had female characters before, of course, but not really narrators. But I think you're right. I think if things are well written and they're written sensitively, and and you don't try to appropriate things that you don't know or just guess things that you don't know. The I think that it's fine.
So we have 2 minutes left. Do you want to? Sometimes aspiring writers listen to this. Do you have any words of advice that you would like to tell a writer who longs to be published the way you guys are published? So, what words of wisdom do you want to tell aspiring writers about the writing life?
I'll jump in. It's writing is very hard work and it takes a long time to learn what you're doing. So number one, you can't give up, but you have to be open to getting better. So you have to let people read what you're writing, not your mother, not your cousin. People you don't know. You've got to send it out to literary magazines, editors, and hope that they give you valuable feedback. Maybe take a class. I was never a writing class person, but I think it can be very, very useful to do that. Get feedback from people whose opinions you trust and learn as you go and understand what instincts you are developing as an artist and learn to trust those and stay with it. Be open to improving, be flexible, change what you're doing in a particular project. If something isn't working, be willing to throw it all out and start over again and be relentless about it. Just don't quit. And I've been doing this almost 40 years. I'm still here.
And Terry, what words of wisdom do you have to
Well,
aspiring
I've
writers?
actually been writing more like 50 years, I think, or more. But it's yeah, I hate to admit that, but I agree. You need to be a vicious editor, and you need to also just write and keep writing and keep trying to improve. And I think your writing groups can be very valuable. One of the things, I hate to say this, but one of the things for me is I have learned the most in writing groups where I was the weakest link. Where other people, I felt other
Mhm.
people were better writers than me, because then I could really learn a lot. But you have to be, I think you have to be flexible, as Anne said. You have to have, kind of thick skin, and be able to go ahead and make the changes that people recommend. They might not always be right, but you at least need to consider it and try to add it to your arsenal.
Very, very important. So before we end, I want to tell everyone to please like the stream tonight. Follow us on whatever platform you're watching us from. It's on either YouTube or Facebook. So either like Facebook and follow Unsolicited Press's Facebook, and also subscribe to the YouTube channel and become one of our viewers. We want to thank everyone for watching. And also, I want to thank Terry and Anne for an inspiring, wonderful night of literature. And thank you so much for joining. And we will see everyone again. Our next session is set to be the 16th of October at 8:30 Eastern Standard Time and 5:30 Pacific Time. Thank you very much. Good night,
Thank you,
everybody.
Rosalia.
Ciao.
Yeah, thank you, Rosalia. You were great.
Good seeing you, Terry.
Good seeing you, Anne.
Bye.